Hey, what's up everybody? My name is Yuri. Welcome to ROH Cycling. Today, we're going to be talking about TSS. I'm going to be creating a series of videos going over the Training Peaks metrics, and today we're going to discuss TSS. For each workout you do, you will get a TSS value. So you can see for this workout here, we've done an hour at 75% of our FTP, and we have got a score of 56. The next workout here, we've gotten a score of 100, and actually for every workout in this calendar, we've scored 100. We'll get back into that just a second, but I just want to show everyone where you can find this number inside of Training Peaks. So now we're going to talk about how TSS is calculated. So I've written out the formula here. So TSS is written out here. It's going to be using time in seconds, your NP, which is normalized power, your IF, which is your intensity factor. It's also going to be using FTP, which is your functional threshold power. And then there are two time constants. I've actually written out the equation here, and you can see I've just comically put in an FTP of 1000. But if I change this to something a little bit more realistic, we will still get the same value of 56 TSS. We're going to play around with some of the values here and see how it impacts the TSS metric. So we can first play around with time. So we will assume that this rider is riding at an intensity factor of 75% of their FTP, which would give us 150. We will change this to 1200 seconds. And everyone should be familiar with 1200 seconds because that's 20 minutes. Lots of 20-minute efforts I'm sure everyone's doing at home and for their testing. So you know how long 20 minutes can be at full pace. But for now, we're just going to be doing 20 minutes at an endurance pace. It's quite leisurely. We score 17 TSS for that. If we crank it up to an hour, we score 56. If we crank this out to 2 hours, we scored 113 TSS. We can also play around with the intensity factor. So basically, at what percentage of our FTP we are riding at. So if we crank this up to 1, which would be 100%, so you're riding at 100% of your FTP, which is 200 watts, for 1 hour, you will score 100. And that's another number people are really familiar with, that sort of 100-point system. Ride 1 hour at FTP, you score 100 points. So now that we've played around with the calculations of TSS and we've played around with some of the variables, both intensity and time, we're going to go back into Training Peaks to learn a little bit more. Okay, so we're back in Training Peaks. We're going to go over some of the rides here and again, learn some of the quirks about TSS. In this explanation here, this was our first effort that we did. So we're riding at 75% of our FTP for 1 hour for 56 points. We also talked about if riding at 100% of FTP for 1 hour will score you 100 TSS points. What we didn't talk about though is you can do a plethora of different rides and still score 100 points. In this example here, this is an hour and 46 minutes, 10 seconds at 75% of FTP will score us 100. If we ride at 65% of our FTP for 2 hours, 22 minutes and 30 seconds, we also get 100 TSS. We can also ride at 80% for another 100 TSS, or we can do an interval format workout. And you can see the time is very different between the two efforts, almost double the time, actually more than double the time. In this one, we're doing 1 minute intervals. In this one, it looks to be 3 or 4 minute interval blocks. But regardless of the actual modality right now, we just want to talk about the points. This is where things get a little bit confusing. You can score 100 points doing a plethora of different workouts. You obviously can sort of get an understanding now that training stress score is just that. It's just a score. It's measuring your training load or the physiological cost on your body that you are incurring via exercise. However, doing a 1 hour time trial for 100 points is very different than riding for several hours at FTP and scoring the same amount of points. It's just training load. It's not going to give you the same sort of physiological adaptations if you were to perform these two workouts. So you can't just be doing a bunch of endurance workouts for 100 points and saying, I'm going to increase my FTP power because I'm scoring more points. If you're still unsure about training stress score, and potentially I've even confused you more than, already what your understanding was training stress score was, we're going to use a different example and we're going to talk about weightlifting. We're going to add in a strength training workout here, and we're just going to input 1,000 pounds total. All right, so we've input some strength training workouts here, and we're going to be basically comparing the two in a similar fashion. So for each of these workouts I've input here, the total weight lifted is 1,000 pounds. However, if we look a little bit more in depth at the workouts themselves, we can see in this workout here, we did 10 repetitions of 100 pounds to gain 1,000 pounds total load. In this workout, we've done 5 repetitions of 200 pounds to get 1,000 pounds total load. In this one, 3 reps of 333. The following one, 2 times 500 pound reps. And the last one is 1 rep for 1,000 pounds. So now you can see whether you're comparing weights or your rides, both metrics are just your load. It's literally load. It doesn't tell us how hard you were going or what the format of that load was. It's just measuring your total load. Another quirky thing that can happen is if you are out riding with one other person and for the entirety of the ride, you ride it side by side, you may both end up having drastically different TSS scores because of course TSS also calculates and factors in your FTP. If your FTPs were vastly different, one person might have been in an endurance zone while the other person might have been in the upper endurance zone or even tempo zone for the entire duration of the ride. Therefore, you would actually be getting entirely different TSS scores. So it's best not to compare your value to someone else's or worry about what is the best value. There is no best value with this number. It's just a measure of your training stress, your training load. It's individual to you. Hopefully, by now I've done a half-decent job of explaining what TSS is, how it's calculated, how the 2 main variables of time and intensity will impact TSS, and what exactly TSS is and isn't. If you found this video useful, please consider liking and subscribing and sharing with your friends. If I've missed something about TSS or you felt that I could have improved in somehow in the video, let me know in the comments section. I'll do my best to reply in a follow-up video. Thanks for watching, and I'm out.